So, finally, we're up.
Awesome.
First, I'd like to say thank you for doing this
Of course,
for
man.
me.
No problem.
This is the first official interview that I'm doing for UAP Mainstream,
Awesome.
and it's an honor to have you as the first interview.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I guess we'll jump right into it because I don't want to keep you long.
Okay.
First, I'm not going to go into like details of ufology or things like that. Basically, I wanted to get a feel for why you started ufology, at what age, and what kind of got you into it. Have you ever had a UFO experience? Are you an experiencer? Something like that.
I've never had an experiencer. Um, I was just a fan, basically, and I was listening to Coast to Coast. Coast to Coast is really what did it for me. Art Bell. You know, I remember one day, it was like 20 years ago, and I was just, I had a little clock radio next to my bed, and I was just flipping channels, and all of a sudden I heard some voice, and it said UFO. And I was like,
Right.
what? So I stopped right there on the radio. I didn't know who Art Bell was or anything like that. And I just started listening, and it was Art Bell, and I was hooked immediately. So I was just a fan. I was real interested in it for many, many years, and I was just sitting on the sidelines. And like a bunch of other people, um, the New York Times article in 2017 happened, and the two videos were released, and the ATIP confirmation. And that just changed everything for me totally. And I was nervous about it at first. I was like, wow, this is really real. And this is what you wanted, Danny. I was like talking to myself, this is what you wanted, Danny. So after like a week or something of just kind of like processing it, I was just totally obsessed. And I needed to know every little thing about it, what was going on with ATIP. And so I just started tweeting. And I was probably like 38 or something. I mean, I was older. And I just started tweeting a lot. And there was only a few of us at that point that were even like on social media talking about this, and it was cool too because I found the New York Times article because Art Bell put it on Facebook, so it was kind of like karma, and then I quickly made friends with all the other people tweeting about ATIP, which was a tight knit group of us, and then some of my friends were like, "Hey, we're starting a blog," and I was like, I don't know how to blog. I don't know how to write. I don't know how to report. I don't even know what I'm doing. And they just like they kept bugging me because they were my friends, and they just kept bugging me to write on the blog. And then I realized that I could break stories with information that I found, and the UFO community is so small, and they're all online. I can blast out a story to the UFO community, and the whole UFO community is reading it in a matter of like 24 hours.
Right.
And we broke stories. We were breaking stories, UFO stories, and we were eating and sleeping it every day. Whereas mainstream journalists, they don't have all this time to be messing with the UFO stuff because they have to report on other things. So
exactly.
we were ahead of the ball there, and so that's kind of how I started out. And then that website kind of dissolved, and I started my own, and I just haven't looked back since. And it's been a wild ride, and I've been able to meet some people and just make connections and things like that. And the UFO community, and even the government people, and all that stuff. They're kind of tight knit and small. So it's once you're writing it for an extended period of time, and they're reading your stuff, and it's easier to make connections than some other fields in the world.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I have to agree with the as far as mainstream media is concerned. They have a stigma that they have to watch out for. Also, I've noticed, and with the New York Times, that's something I wanted to touch base with a little bit with you on. Also, was the New York Times article that broke a few months ago, and there was. There were some problems with the UFO community pretty much dumping on them for not having their facts vetted, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to come across and say, look, this is kind of a new thing for the mainstream media. I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, you see um, newspaper articles here and there dating back to the 40s, even earlier, where they'll try and put out a piece and they'll generate some excitement, but then it kind of gets swept under the rug. People don't want to talk about it anymore, and it just kind of gets buried. And now that we have this, since A-Tip kind of broke, and Lou Elizondo, of course, comes forward and says, this is a real thing. This is going on. Now the mainstream media wants to get on board a little bit, trying to, sticking out their feelers. I've noticed, and trying to get things done here and there. Um, I kind of wanted to get your ideas on why you think the UFO community was so hard on the New York Times article. Um, and the article that you had, geez, I'm kind of having a brain fart here, but you had mentioned something about the New York Times bringing this is information the information that they brought forward on that particular article was nothing new to the UFO community, but you had also mentioned that this is new to the general public who doesn't really follow this kind of stuff.
Right. We're jaded in the UFO community. We're super jaded. We're doing this every day. So
Right.
we don't we might not get excited about something because we already know about it, but the public is the goal here, especially with the New York Times, even the recent documentary phenomenon. Um, the
Yeah.
public is the goal, unidentified, all this stuff. The public is the goal. So we're jaded. We want all this new information to be blasted out to us and to be interested to us. But a lot of these mainstream outlets, it's for everyone else. And
Right.
we just have to take ourselves back to, before 2017 for me, when I was just, kind of like a member of the public myself. And that first New York Times article was new to everyone, including the UFO community, because it had ATIP and everything. But we have to be happy about mainstream media attention because that's
Exactly.
that's many of our goals is to be activists and get the public on board. So we don't feel so weird talking about it. We want them to know it's a real thing. We want them to know what we know or believe what we believe. And so, yeah, we knew there was uh, crash retrievals or we've heard rumors of that and things like that. So when Eric
Sure.
Davis said it wasn't necessarily new to us, but it was a huge revelation that the New York Times was talking about it. And I guess the UFO community also didn't really know that Davis was briefing people on it, which is really interesting. But
Right. Right.
yeah, and as far as the UFO community being harsh on that story, I mean, it's good and bad. It's always good to kind of dissect things, but the UFO community is also, really, it eats its own. Everyone always says that. We're really hard on ourselves. And a lot of people,
Yeah.
if they're not attached to
Oh,
the story or they don't feel like it's helping them in some way, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to know about it, or they're just going to hate on it. It's also just the internet
right.
culture. You see it in sports or politics or anything else. Everyone's always complaining online, and it's no different in the UFO community. So a lot of people were disappointed with that article in the UFO community, but I think it did a lot of good and it was really cool. And it kind of opened the
Yeah.
door for people to be thinking about things. Um, and Davis kind of took his career to the next level just because he was kind of the main source in that article. And there's all these rumors that a lot of it was cut out. There was a lot of hype and rumors about that article before it came out. So the hype,
Yes. Yeah.
it's hard to live up to the hype in any case. I mean, it
Sure.
comes from any of these projects, and the hype is just so huge. We want it to change the world, and it doesn't always change the world, but I definitely think the 2017 New York Times article did change the world. Maybe not this one, but it's just more, steps in the right direction, and we need to be happy about it. And but there's always going to be haters. I get blogs written
Of
about
course.
me that I'm part of whatever conspiracy, and it's just crazy stuff. And So it's good and bad because we're really hard on ourselves. We're our own worst critic, but then
Oh
also
yeah.
it's just like it takes it to like the crazy hater level, which just isn't productive in any way. So it's kind of
Right.
a double-edged sword.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah, and that kind of it brings me to another question too. I had these all in order, but now that we're kind of flowing here, you had I believe you had done some work for Andreas and the unidentified, the people over there. Is that correct?
We were that was the website I was talking about. It wasn't unidentified. We all worked together, and it was a website called UAP Info, and that was when we were all really new. We none of us really knew what we were doing, and we were just getting started. And that was UAP Info. It was me, Andreas, and other members, Keith Mayo, and
Okay.
and a bunch of other people. I'm forgetting. I'm not gonna can't name them all, but it was a
Sure.
bunch of us working. We didn't know what the heck we were doing, and we were just kind of winging it. And it gave us some interesting uh, uh, times, and it gave us just some interesting experience, and it made us who we are today. And I can never repay those guys for making me do it. Basically, I wouldn't have done it without them because they forced me to, and so we're still friends to this day, and we have separate projects now. But
Yeah.
we had some cool stories. Like we found well, we reported on it. Twitter user Jay, who has his own project now, but he found the Chris Mellon website leak. So that was a huge story for
Okay.
us. We found the Lou Elizondo. They found the Lou Elizondo resignation letter. So we blasted that out to the community. I mean, that was a huge
Right.
story. Along
Right.
with it was like the unredacted Nimitz report, which was like a huge thing.
Yep.
And we had a bunch of other stories we were able to break at that time, but we just kind of got some experience and got our feet wet a little bit. And that's when we realized that this actually works and that we actually had a voice that the UFO community did. And we went our separate ways at the end of the day, but we all still have the same goals of being a UAP activist, basically, and getting the information out.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. And then as far as ATIP and TTSA, uh, there have again there have been some uh, not so favorable comments and opinions of TTSA, saying that possibly uh, agents of disinformation, I guess you could say that people are calling them, maybe purposely or unwittingly. And I know that you had made some comment when you called into.
Jimmy Church.
I'm sorry.
I called it to Jimmy Church.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. And you had made some comments defending Lou Elizondo and things like that. I was wondering if any of your opinions have changed over that time since you had made that call into the radio station there, and I was wondering if you thought maybe unwittingly they were being played as disinformation agents, not not doing it purposefully, but maybe unwittingly.
I don't think so. I don't think they are. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess you can't rule anything out, and people can be tricked. I could be getting tricked. Anyone could be getting tricked. But no, I don't think so. And my
Sure.
opinion hasn't changed since then. That was a really funny call when I called Jimmy Church. I was really new at this. I think I was still with UAP Info real early. A lot of people didn't know who I was, and it was kind of like good promo for me. But it was really funny too because I had really put Jimmy Church on his heels, and I kind of backed him against the wall in that call because he was stating a lot of wrong info, and it was
Yeah,
pretty funny. And like his whole fan base, it was like a big deal, and I got a lot of clout for it. It wasn't really my intention. I just wanted to call because he was continuously crapping on him. But it was kind of funny, and it was kind of my introduction into this thing too. So it was like right now, but my opinion hasn't changed, and I've gotten to know some of the TTSA people, and I trust them, and I think they're doing great work, and they're not. A lot of the criticism about them, like they're in it to get money or whatever, like they are trying to get money and funding to keep going, but it isn't like these guys aren't already settled in their jobs or whatever they were doing, and it's not they're not
Right.
making a ton of money on this. It's almost like they're trying to make money just to keep the thing going, and you can
Well,
see
sure.
Ryan and Elizondo and all these guys, and they're not really gaining from this. I mean, they had great lives before this. They didn't need to do this. Um,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
putting everything on the line just for this subject. I mean, they're eating and sleeping it every day. We think we're working hard. These guys are really, really working hard. I think I
Right.
have haters, and I think I get death threats. I mean, imagine what these guys have to go through.
Sure.
I'm just a blogger. These guys are like huge, famous, people, and so they're whatever we go through, it's just magnified a million times for them, all the bad and the good, probably. But no, I trust them, and I think it's great. And the thing is, it's not only the UFO fans. There is a lot of important people that don't trust to the Stars Academy because of their government ties. And I understand that, and I get it, and I know that the government has lied to us, but at the same time, To the Stars Academy isn't the government, and there's different factions in the government, and it's not just one monolith like the government. It isn't just one thing. There's a lot of different people with different opinions, and and nothing would have happened, in the last 3 years if it wasn't for Elizondo and these guys and
Right.
Millen and all them and Tom DeLonge even. So we just have to keep that in mind, and it's kind of like I've said this many times, but the UFO community was always like, let's get someone from the government to come forward and talk. That's all we want. That'll be so great. And it finally happened, and now we're throwing it back at them, and we're mad, and we don't trust them because
Right.
we're from the government. But this is what we've been asking for. I mean,
Exactly.
we got
Exactly.
confirmation of ATIP, and now we even have confirmation of a current ongoing program, which is the UAP Task Force. I mean, this is like really, really historic, and it's weird to see the UFO community so jaded that they've just been burned so many times, and a lot of the new people I think that have come into ufology recently, they're not as jaded, but these older guys that have been doing it for 20 years, they've been
Ah,
they've been burned so many times, and I get
yeah.
it, but we haven't been burned as many times, so we're more optimistic with it, and
I have.
the
Yeah.
last 3 years have been amazing. It's been amazing. It's been all good, and To the Stars Academy has succeeded. Basically, they've had some setbacks, but they've succeeded in everything they've been doing, and it's now
Yep.
culminated with the UAP task force and this intelligence bill. Hopefully, it'll get passed, and it's just really good. And they've been putting their money where their mouth is. They've succeeded, and they've accomplished their goals, and they're continuing to. So, if To the Stars Academy burns us in some huge way, then we can reevaluate it at the time. But until that
Sure.
happens, I
Sure.
think we definitely need to support them as much as possible, or don't support them. Sit back because they don't. They're not going to stop doing what they're doing because there's some internet hate or whatever. They're going to keep going, and they have a lot of resources behind them, and they just continuously win.
All right. Now, you said that you've gotten to know some of those guys. Have you been able to sit down with anybody for an interview or anything like that, such as maybe Chris Mellon or Lou Elizondo, or maybe somebody not in the spotlight, but somebody who has inside information? Have you been able to get something like a repertoire going with any of them?
I've been lucky enough to have some of them answer my communications. I did get to meet Elizondo in person last
Yeah.
over a year ago, so that was
Okay.
really cool. That was huge for me, and I peppered
Yeah.
him with as many questions as I possibly could.
Sure.
And since then, I've been able to be in contact with various members, and they're nice enough to answer my communications if I have questions. I'm always what I do as a blogger. I just bug the heck out of people, and I try to get
Sure.
as much information as I can. So I'm always, kind of like worried that I'm bugging these guys too much. So I try not to just bug the heck out of them unless I have like a really important question. But a lot of times they'll answer me. Um, there's certain people I haven't talked to, but then there's a lot I've also talked to, not just TTSA, but many people. And I'm always just honored and kind of flabbergasted that you can actually contact some of these people and they'll get back to you. I'm coming from the music industry where it's like you try to talk to a famous person to get them to your music, and it's like the hardest possible thing. But
Sure.
in the UFO community, it's actually easier to contact some of these famous people. I'm hoping to do some on the record interviews moving forward. I have some projects. Hopefully, that'll get announced. But
Okay.
and then also you can just kind of check into my blog, and you can see on the record comments from various what I call important people, and you can kind of see who I've been in communication with. I mean, I had one from Eric Davis in my last satellite blog. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm best friends with these guys, but it means
Sure.
that they're nice enough to answer my communications.
Sure. Sure. Okay. That okay. I guess that'll take me to the next question I have. Kind of off the subject of TTSA, but it leads me to Keith Basterfield.
Mm-hmm.
I was turned on to him actually by somebody else in the ufology community, and I didn't realize, me being new to ufology too, um, I didn't realize how in depth and what a legend he was until I actually started reading his blogs, and I noticed that you did help him with some pieces of information here and there. Has he always been kind of your go-to scientific ufologist when it comes to the really deep, heavy stuff, or do you have other guys that you look up to?
I have a lot of different people I look up to. I definitely do look up to Keith.
Okay.
He's a legend, and he is. And then a
Yes.
lot of people are trying to be different people. My main two people that I really look up to big time is George Knapp, who has helped me more
Sure.
than I can ever say. He's a friend of mine, and he's a great person. And then on the blogging side, it would be Keith Basterfield because his work is amazing and it's straightforward. Some of my stuff has more opinion in it, and his just doesn't. And he's just a great guy, and he handles himself really well. And
Yes.
he's a good friend too. And you know, we don't talk every day. We're not best friends or anything, but I can bounce ideas
Sure.
off of him. And he's just a great role model, I think, for many of us in the community. And his blog is just so great, and he handles himself so respectfully. I never see him arguing with anyone. It's really easy to start arguing with people, and especially when I first got into this, I was arguing on the internet a lot, and then I just kind of get burnt out on it, and I realized it's just not what I want to do or spend my time doing. I'll still do it a little bit, but it's just not
Right.
always worth it. But yeah, and I have a lot of people I look up to, man. I look up to Lou Elizondo a lot, but I can't do what he's doing. But as far as modeling my career, or whatever you want to call it, modeling myself after other people, it would
Yeah.
be, and I consider myself a citizen journalist because I'm not a trained journalist, but it would definitely be George Knapp, number one. And then
Okay.
just in general, because he's been through it all. He's the biggest reporter ever on the subject. But then on the
Yeah.
blogging side, it would be Keith Basterfield. He's a great guy, and his blogs are great. And he's just, yeah, I don't know how much I've helped him, but we will bounce ideas off of each other. Or let's say he writes a blog, and then I'll report on it, or I'll write a blog sometimes, and if it's good enough, he'll report on it. And
Sure.
they'll take that research and kind of just run with it. And then that goes for a lot of other people too. George Knapp will report something, and then I'll report on it and just share it. We want to share it with each other's audiences because people that read my stuff don't necessarily always read Keith Basterfield. People that George Knapp has his audience, and I have my audience. So sometimes we will just kind of repeat the same stories, but
Yeah.
that's because we're trying to share it with each other's audiences. And of course, my audience is way smaller than George Knapp's would be, but I have
Yeah.
my people that read my stuff, and I just want to share the most important information on my blog. So that's how it goes. But yeah, Keith is a great guy. He's a great blogger, and he's a great writer, a great journalist, or whatever he calls himself. And he's a great role model.
Yeah, George Knapp, he's been one of my go-to guys too. I have yet to have any communication with him, but boy, would I love to. I guess though the biggest thing that really got me into him was, of course, Bob Lazar. I
Mhm.
mean, that was the whole thing. Bob Lazar and the Area 51 and S4 and Element 115 and all that other stuff that he really got into. And have you known him since that story broke?
No, not at all. You know,
Oh,
I
okay.
was when did that story break? 1980?
That, that was
1990.
89 or 90, I
Yeah, I
believe it
mean,
was.
I was a little kid. I was a little kid.
Okay, okay.
I got to I've just dived into this since 2017, but I've got to know George since then, and he's a great mentor for me. And I'm able to, when I have a problem or just a question, I'm able to hit him up. And he's just a great guy. He's a funny guy, and he's the number one person that's ever helped me. When I was really new to this, he was, he gave us an interview over at the UAP info site. It was huge for us. It was like
Yeah.
biggest thing he had ever done. And he's just, his insight is amazing. Everything he does is amazing and perfect. And I just, he's the best to ever do it. And he's not someone that's been in the government. He's been a reporter. So I can model myself after him because I don't have a government career or anything like that. And he knows how to not burn sources. Just every little thing he does, it's really classy. And he's really changed the world in his life. He's done so much. The Bob Lazar story is great, but even just other stuff that he's done with his Russia work, his continuous reporting, he's released all these defense intelligence reference documents. It goes on and on and on. And he was doing this stuff when it wasn't cool. It's getting a little bit cooler now for reporters to
Right.
do this. He's been doing this stuff for decades when it
Uh,
wasn't. And he's
right,
just
right.
getting his neck out there. And he's just, I just can't say it enough. Like, he's the best to ever do it. We're blessed to have him in the community, have someone of his stature. And I don't know, and I'll always have his back, and I'll always be grateful to him, and I'll never be able to repay him or even some of these other people. I'll never be able to repay them for what they've done for me. Um, and he's just a great ally.
All right. Okay. So I guess moving forward, do you you said you had mentioned that you might have a few things going with TTSA as far as reporting. Do you have anything else lined up as far as articles, interviews, anything like that that maybe you'd be interested in maybe dropping a hint right here?
I, I'm, I'm, I'm looking to team up with another personality in the UFO community and do some interviews, some joint interviews. We've been trying to get that going. I dragged my feet. I went through a move, and it set me back. But I'm all moved in now, and so and do some live interviews. I've never really done live recorded interviews. I've been interviewed, but I've never interviewed people live. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Um, I've been working on a blog about Elizondo's background, and that'll release eventually. I've been working on. I had this satellite blog that I released a couple weeks ago, and that one took me a really long time to do.
Right.
I might end up doing a part two of that eventually. I always try to have blogs in the chamber. Just I don't ever want to not know what I'm doing next or not be working on anything. But other than
Sure.
that, it's kind of news. We're kind of going through a slightly slow news cycle because this always happens after the unidentified season ends.
Yeah.
Um, so and plus everything is just the election. It's like total all election news right now. But at the same time,
Yeah.
the Japan story was huge. That another person I really look up to, Giuliano Marinkovic, um, and AKA Omni Talk Radio on Twitter.
Yeah.
He broke that Japan story, and that was a
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
big thing. That was huge, man. So that was a
Yeah.
really good story, and I've seen that kind of around. That's hit mainstream media and things like that. So there's still
Right.
these big things. There's the phenomenon documentary promo push going on right now, which is pretty cool. They were just on Tucker
Right.
Carlson last night. That's national. So there's always stuff going on, but I don't know what my next blog will be. We'll see. It might be the Elizondo blog, but hopefully there'll be some news or something that'll pop up, and I'll report on that. But yeah, and then I'm hoping to do some live interviews. We'll see if that happens. But eventually, I'd like to do some live interviews, kind of like you're doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not easy to do when you're first getting into it. and not being as tech savvy as I'd like to be, it creates challenges. But I'm just trying to get it moving and trying to get people talking more and more about ufology now and the paranormal as well. And I guess that would be uh, my last question is do you do you do you believe in the paranormal as well as UFOs? Because I know Basterfield, which is probably one of my biggest, models, um, has said that ufology and the paranormal should be investigated as one, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. Do you believe in the paranormal? Do you believe what he says?
Sticking to UFOs, and I wasn't dipping
Okay.
into this other stuff. And now that I've really gotten into the UFO story, um, I do see that there's these connections. I mean, you can look at Skinwalker Ranch, or you can look at experiencers and the things that happen to them with psychic ability or poltergeist activity that happens to them. So I can't discount any of that. And I also look at the NIDS reporting. They had reportings of Bigfoot around UFO sightings, and they have these ghost reportings and things like that. So I can't rule it all out. I'm not an expert on a lot of this other paranormal stuff, but I think Skinwalker and NIDS are the big things that make me not rule it out at all and take it very seriously, along with the experiencers. I mean, these experiencers have these really crazy things happen to them. And
Yeah.
it's almost like for the rest of their lives, they're going through it. And my heart's out to them if it's messing up their lives. Some of them love it, and then some of them don't. Also, since I've been reporting, I've had really interesting people contact me, like channelers and all kinds of different people. And I've seen things in person with people I've met, things I've never thought I would see, with people channeling and all kinds of interesting things. And it's really opened up my eyes. So I don't rule out anything really. I'm really open minded um, with it, and a lot of it I don't understand. A lot of this consciousness stuff. I can kind of dip into it a little bit, but you don't see it a lot in my reporting because I just don't get it, and I leave it to other people that are smarter than me, like Twitter user Jay. Um, his new project is really dips into the consciousness stuff, and there's
Right.
some people that are just really more astute with it than I am. But I listen to them and I try to understand it. But and I'm just a blogger. It goes the same when I'm talking to these famous scientists and stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff is going over my head. They're talking about exotic propulsion, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm
Yeah.
reading these Defense Intelligence Reference documents, the DIRDs, and it's not like I can read a DIRD and just understand everything that's in them. But they're still really interesting. So yeah, I don't rule out any of the paranormal stuff. I don't rule out portals, interdimensions. I don't know if ghosts are what the world generally thinks ghosts are, but there's definitely activity. I mean, who knows? Who am I to say? I really just don't know. But
Right.
even
Right.
people like Eric Davis said they had poltergeist activity follow them home after they went to Skinwalker, and he had that voice talking through him also at Skinwalker. I mean, these are guys that believe what they say. They're famous scientists, and I think they're
Yeah.
just incredible. So I don't rule out any of this stuff. It might not be my bag, and I might not
Right.
be writing about it all the time, but no, I don't rule it out, and I think it's pretty interesting. And we don't know the big picture. I'm convinced that we don't know a lot of what's going on. We don't know a lot
Oh,
of
I
the
agree.
pro subject. We just don't know it. We don't know what the government knows. We don't know the big picture in general, and we don't know about the paranormal. We just probably don't know how everything fits. So we have a long way to go still.
Yep. Yep. I guess. All right. It leaves me to actually one more question, and it was about the NASA article about them possibly finding a dimension running in reverse time. I don't know if you heard about that. It was kind of swept under the rug and saying maybe it was debunked or something else. Did you hear about that? Did you have an opinion about it?
I don't have much of an opinion on it. I think Tom DeLonge mentioned it or something. But the whole
Right.
interdimensional stuff, we always try to figure out where the others, quote unquote, are coming from. Are they interdimensional? Are they the general idea that they're coming from other planets? Are they cryptoterrestrials? Do they live in the ocean? it's all these things. Maybe it's all of them at the same time. Is it travelers from the future? We don't know. It could be one of them. It could be all of them. I am leaning towards, because of the sources I've talked to and things like that, that there are different types of others or different species. So it could be all of the above. I don't know about the interdimensional NASA article as much, but I don't rule it out. And when you listen to people put off, or even some of Elizondo's comments, it really sounds like these people believe in these other dimensions, and maybe that's where some of the others are popping in and out from. So I don't rule that out. And that seems like a very popular theory, and it's really one of the leading theories, I would say.
Okay, yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that there are dimensions that we just don't see, and portholes being opened up and closing randomly, and we just don't know. And like you said, we don't know what's going on. There's a big picture that we just don't know about yet, and that's why we need to keep continuing to talk about it, and get the discussion going, as just making it as normal as possible. With everything that's going on lately, I think it's very important, and that's why I decided to get into this type of thing, and really push people to start talking about it, and not have to worry about the stigma of being labeled as the tinfoil hat community, and things like that, because it's happening. There's really no denying it anymore. So I guess with all that said now, I want to thank you again for doing this, and I hope to have you again soon.
Cool.
And yeah.
Awesome, man. Congrats on the interview series, and I wish you well. And thanks for all you're doing on social media, and your reporting and all that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. All right, thanks again, and you have a good weekend.
You too, man. Thank you.
All right.